get cooperation from the opposite side of the aisle so that we can negotiate and reopen the office. This is the 16th day of the government being shut down. Employees are not being paid. 4,000 have already been fired, and the Office of Management and Budget, run by Mr. Volt, has said that they want to see about 10,000 unemployed. They think it's too many government employees. I disagree with that, and my side of the aisle disagrees with that. And we think that it is cruel and harmful for our employees to be fired for no good reason. And I think the courts are deciding with that as of yesterday. They have raised questions about the president's authority to do this, and certainly raised questions about the president being able to do it for no good cause, no good reasons. And of course, employees should not be treated like that. And so we are still shut down. Employees have been fired. They wish to fire more. And the courts, I think the lower courts, where it is first being heard, is taking our position of the president does not have the authority to do this. And I believe that the lower court decision will be that those employees will have to be brought back. I don't know how they're framing their decision, but I know the lower court is not happy about what has happened. And so any information that you're hearing about employees being fired is true. I want you to keep up on a daily basis what is going on. My office will be available to you to raise questions and try and keep you up to date. The use of military in our cities is a concern. How is Congress addressing this? Well, yes, there are concerns about the National Guard, and in California, even the Marines were brought in. And so ICE, working with the National Guard and the Marines, are in California. The Marines may be out now. The National Guard is expanded in California into neighborhoods. And of course, ICE is in many of the neighborhoods in California. And there are great concerns about the way that ICE is handling its responsibility. They're masked, you can't see their faces. They have been pulling people off the sidewalks. If they think they are Latino, or if they hear them speaking Spanish, they don't know whether or not they're documented, but they pull them anyway, and it's plain harassment. People's houses are being entered without any search warrants, and ICE is outside of our schools waiting on parents to pick up their children, or trying to deport parents, leaving the children unattended. And so this is a very distressful time. This is a very unhappy time. And it is not only happening in our city, but in other cities all across the country. I'm so afraid about the confrontations. I'm so afraid about the fact that, killings will take place. I'm so afraid that some of the young people not understanding this will fight back. And of course, the kind of provocation that is being realized can cause some of these terrible things to happen. The president is threatening to institute what is known as the Insurrection Act, which is like martial law, where they can close down everything, and they can have emergency authority, which will cause people not to be able to come out of their houses or to be in curfews, or on and on and on. I wish I could have happier news about what is happening in our cities, in California, in Torrance, in Lawndale, Gardena, South LA, all of the 43rd District, but we are basically being handled very roughly. Um, and I'm very unhappy about all of that. What are the prospects for less partisanship and more cooperation? Or is that just gone? Well, at this time, there's no cooperation. The leader of the Democrats have said they're willing to sit down anytime, any place, anywhere. The Republicans want us to vote a continuing resolution without making any commitments to not cutting Medicaid. Medicaid has been cut by $1 trillion. Section 8 that assists people who are not able to pay the very high rents is being cut drastically. Food stamps are being cut. Many of our students who are in schools are able to be there and have food because of food stamps. And so this is very serious. We're not asking the government to do everything. We're asking our government to be of assistance. We're asking our government to respect democracy. We're asking our government to respect the Constitution. And I fear that they are taking nonviolent protest as some kind of lawlessness. It is not. The Constitution guarantees us the right to protest peacefully. And that's what is happening. But when ICE comes in, it provokes and it creates the kind of interaction that may lead to people getting hurt or even people being shot. And so, again, you ask all of the questions that are being asked everywhere. And we wish that the president would sit down and talk about what they are trying to do in the way that they are allowed to do it. But there is nothing that gives them the right to do it the way that they're doing it. If they're undocumented that they want to question, if they're undocumented that they have guarantees about, they should be able to deport them. But this is not what is happening. Innocent people are being stopped and harassed and roughed up and pulled out of cars and thrown into their vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. And many of them are legal citizens. They have to let them go, but what they go through is very traumatic oftentimes. And so that's about what is going on. We know that some of the cuts that are being proposed are just untenable, that our communities cannot work very well with the deep cuts. Medicaid is not about one section of our society who needs help. Medical care costs are extremely out of reach. They're very costly. And so we have people across all kind of lines that need Medicaid. We have people who work every day who cannot afford, uh, the increase in Obamacare. They cannot afford the cost of medical care. And so we're fighting very hard. And healthcare and Medicare and Medicaid are very hot issues for us in order to make sure that we do everything that we can to keep people alive and to help teach people how to be, more careful with their health care. Preventive actions that we're taking in healthcare to prevent these terrible diseases from proliferating, et cetera, et cetera. And so when they talk about a continuing resolution, they want to continue it without making any commitments to undo some of the harm. We have part of HIV/AIDS that has been cut off altogether, period. And HIV/AIDS has not been solved at this point, but we know there are medicines that can keep people alive, medicines that people cannot afford, that we can help them with. But we should not ignore all the good work that we've done in keeping people alive on HIV and AIDS and not take away the medicine that could keep them alive. So these are some of the issues that we're dealing with. And no, there's nothing planned that I know about at this point. The president is running the show for a Republican. And for us, there is solid support for trying to undo some of these cuts on the Democratic side. And that's where we are. I'll be happy to take any more questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Are there any questions? Any on the Zoom?
Don't see anybody on Zoom. Hands up. No.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again. We know your office is very accessible, so if there are any follow-ups, we'll be sure to reach out. But thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And don't forget to write and call all of the legislators. Use your social media platforms. The people in the final analysis, I think, is what can move these issues. If people insist on the negotiations, insist on cooperation, and talk about the harm, tell the stories about the illnesses that people need help on, etc. I think the people can play a big role, but the people must get involved in a very serious way. Thank you all so very much for caring to hear about all of this information. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to jump back a little bit and we're going to get an update from Jackie Bacharach, the Executive Director for COG. Jackie, if you can take it away.
Sure, and I guess I'll stay here. In your packet on page 2 is actually the briefing. Next slide, we're going to talk about things that have happened since our last meeting, which was in August. And here's some of the programs that we're working on. It just is a continual list of things that we're doing that we keep very busy with. Our South Bay Fiber Network. It's just a reminder of the ring that we have. It's operating efficiently and effectively, but we are looking to find a new operator who will expand the network into businesses and residents. The purpose of our fiber network is to provide good, reliable, inexpensive service and be competitive in the market, to disrupt the market. We've already done this for the cities. The prices that cities are being quoted from other entities is lower, which is great, but we hope they'll stick with our fiber network. But we want to do that. We want to give the businesses and the residents the opportunity to have that as well. So even today, I'm meeting with some firm that's interested in talking with us about this. So we have some interest, and the jury's out on where we're going, but we're still looking to do that. So let's go to the next slide. Our local travel network is also moving forward, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later as well. It's in El Segundo, and those are the signs that are up in El Segundo. Redondo Beach is going to be starting it, and we're working in Lomita, Carson, and El Segundo as expansion, and Lawndale to extend it to those cities. And we also have a study going on how to go from Carson all the way to Wilmington on the local travel network. Next slide. In September, we approved, or I guess the Metro Board approved, almost $9.5 million for Measure Our Transit for projects that our cities have submitted. There's $78 million for Measure M projects, and that's for 26 projects that we submitted. Now we're doing our one-on-one meetings, which are how we do, every year we do one-on-one meetings with cities to find out where they are on the projects we've already funded and what possible projects they might have for the future. Next slide. On homeless services, this is a big lift. We found out that the state has money in CalAIM that the cities could be applying for, but you have to be certified. So we have, we're working with Hero on certifying our cities so that we can get CalAIM funding, which will actually augment the funding we're getting from the county. And that's a really important thing, because we can always use more funding for all of the programs that we're doing. We're rolling out our Measure A programs that includes our client aid and our time-limited subsidy program, where we actually give money to people to help them over the tough times that they're dealing with. And then we're working with 4 cities on Functional Zero. Functional Zero is what we've done in Redondo Beach, which is having cities pretty much have whoever becomes homeless, they can get somebody else housed or that person housed rapidly. So we are working on that. And then there's a statistic here that 33% of the people that only 33% of the people go from the street to a shelter. There's an awful lot of work that needs to be done to get people housed. So let's go to the next slide. The next slide is about La Casa. Casa is a new county agency that's been created with Measure A. Unfortunately, when you create a new county agency, you create unbelievable number of meetings. And so this is taking a lot of time, but it's extremely important that we go to the La Casa meetings and we work with our others, councils of governments, so that we can make sure that the rules that are established at the very beginning are rules that are good for us, because we're the people on the ground that are working with cities that need to get the money where it needs to go. This slide, I won't go through it. The slide has the different pots of money, but in total, we're getting $13 million this year for homeless services. So we are hiring some people and trying to be ready to make sure that the programs we have don't have any interruption, and we're ready to start new programs. Let's go to the next slide. We have housing programs that we're working on through SCAG funding. Our regional housing trust has been formed in legislation, but not formed in reality. In October, the board will hear from our consultant on what it means to actually form the housing trust and what it can do. And in November, we'll ask the board for a recommendation on what they want to do. We also are working on with a consultant on commercial redevelopment for housing, into housing, what sites might be available to do that. And then finally on micromobility hubs, where we can actually create transfer points for the things that, for local travel and distance travel. Next slide. Our environmental programs continue with outreach with our wonderful volunteers. We're working with water agencies in the South Bay. And then our green business certification. The state, I guess, has pulled back funding for green business certification, but we're still looking at how we can outreach to businesses and provide incentives for them to adopt green business practices. We have certified over 400 businesses so far in the work we've already done. So let's go to the next slide. This is very exciting. We're actually doing hard energy efficiency upgrades with our cities, and we've moved on to our school districts. Students and teachers have signed up. We have 60 classrooms in our Kids for Kids program, where children learn energy efficiency habits, I guess you could say, bring them home to their families. And when they do all of these things, their classroom, their teacher gets $1,000. So there's an incentive to do that. And we're going to be having some award ceremonies or recognition ceremonies coming up soon. We also have our city recognition ceremony, which is December 11th, where we're going to be celebrating all of the things that the cities have done on sustainability. We're working on a cool roof technology study, and very exciting. We're first place in the county that is doing commercial direct install in Gardena. And we're actually working with cities, with businesses in Gardena. We have 29 active projects, which will give businesses free water heaters, lighting, and refrigeration. One of the biggest problems with this is to walk into a business and say, there is such a thing as a free lunch. And so we really have, but we've managed to get 29 active businesses. We're very excited about it, and we'll be having probably a ceremony about that as well. And then our greenhouse gas inventories are starting, we're finalizing them. I have another slide, which is things that we've been talking about here, and next slide. And I just want to, you can't read this one. I just want to mention them because we can talk about them more after with the legislative talks. But our local community development directors, and I guess Allison is here and can help us with this, are heavily impacted by all these requirements. We are really finding that the mandates are coming down, but not more hours in the day and not more dollars to respond to them. The court decision in Redondo Beach is something I think we should talk about later, which has to do with the overlay zones, and also just at SB 79 impacts. These are things that we need, we would like the legislators to understand from a city perspective, because there's some real life consequences of what can and cannot get done. The next thing we've talked about here is, I mentioned the local travel network with requirements for more housing and allowances reduced parking, or no parking. The emphasis on micromobility and our local travel network is that much more important. There will be more cars if you have more density. And this is not saying yes or no to more density, but it's saying the reality is there will be more cars. And the trips can be accommodated. There will be local trips. They can be accommodated by micro modes. They do not have to be accommodated by large cars. With micro modes, you save on parking spaces. It's a space reduction, it's an environmental benefit, and it takes cars off the arterials. So the importance of our micromobility is really being highlighted by these housing programs. And so we would love to advocate and request to our legislators a pilot program that an area like ours that's committed to micromobility should get a rebate for the micromobility vehicles, just like you do for a Tesla. If you're going to buy an e-bike or a neighborhood electric vehicle, you should get some kind of an incentive to do that so that we can encourage people to use smaller modes of travel. And then the last thing that I think has been the elephant in the room for a long time is that cities very heavily rely on sales tax. And if we're going to continue to chip away at commercial development, then I think it's time to look at how cities are funded. So, so those are the issues that I'm putting on the table besides the other issues that we might want to talk about. The last slide, or the next slide, is our upcoming events. We decided that a lot of people that work for cities don't really know what the COG is all about and how we can sort of help them or in their jobs. So next week, we're having an orientation for city staff on what is the COG. On the 30th, we're having an artificial intelligence forum to talk about how cities can work together to learn from each other on artificial intelligence. Our big event is going to be November 30th, where we have an open house to show off our new offices, a volunteer dinner, and volunteer recognition for our fantastic volunteers. And then March 26th is going to be our General Assembly. The last slide is a stay in the know, all the ways you can keep in touch with us. And then, and that's it. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, but there's plenty of things for us to talk about on the table.
Okay, thank you. We are going to proceed with our federal representatives. And so next, I am going to ask from the office of Congressmember Ted Lieu, Nicolas Rodriguez and Rohan Abraham to give us an update.
Thank you, and thank you to Congressmember Waters for her remarks. A lot of what our office has to say in response to these questions is going to echo and hopefully underscore what she's said here. But getting right into it, the effects of the shutdown, I'm sure a lot of you have personally felt or witnessed certain effects of it. I mean, a lot of federal agencies and programs are running on a skeleton crew, and obviously federal employees are really starting to feel this shutdown. And I mean, we have to emphasize here that Republicans have refused to come to the table on this and compromise with us and work on legislation to, address the ACA tax credits that have to be preserved in order to ensure that both enrollees and people across the United States receiving health care don't face increased premiums and issues at the hospital. And as Democrats, we're willing to work with Republicans to reopen the government and ensure that Americans retain essential access to health care. But Republicans have not returned to the Capitol to work on this. And the shutdown is having severe effects. I mean, there are estimates that the unemployment rate is going to rise significantly if this shutdown goes for even a few more days. There's going to be huge hits to consumer spending, and already we've heard, 22 states are in a recession already because of this. To move on to some of the other questions that have been posed regarding the use of the military in our cities and the associated ICE activity. Our office and other Democratic legislators are seriously concerned about the deployment of the National Guard and military in our cities and the extra legal ICE actions being taken as well. Our office and other Democratic legislators have met with state attorney generals in shadow hearings to discuss the legal actions that can be taken to curb military deployment in our cities. We've also co-sponsored legislation to prevent agents from masking themselves and acting as a secret police force. And we're going to continue to provide legislative support to our state and local efforts against the deployment of the military in our cities and to combat the extra legal activities of ICE and its efforts in both in California and elsewhere to infringe on the rights of our citizens and our constituents. As far as the prospects for less partisanship, I mean, Democrats have stayed in DC through this shutdown, ready to reach a bipartisan solution. Meanwhile, Republicans have called off votes and left the Capitol empty, and they are in control of the Senate, the House, and the White House. This is a petty refusal to negotiate, and really the ball is in their court to reciprocate the willingness that our office and other Democrats have shown to find a bipartisan solution to the ongoing shutdown. And in the spirit of less partisanship, our office has continued to work with other legislators to try and advance legislation serving our communities and the country as a whole. Regarding the effects of the shutdown, even, we've co-sponsored back in September legislation that would prohibit removal of federal employees during a shutdown, HR 5599. And more recently, we joined in on HR 5676, which would prohibit executive agencies from terminating employees during shutdowns. Republican legislators concerned for the well-being of our federal employees are welcome to join in these efforts, but so far they haven't returned to the Capitol to work with us. And like I said, I think a lot of this underscores and echoes what Congressmember Waters presented to the COG. And I hope this information is helpful, and I hope that if we reach a resolution to this shutdown and a lot of and manage to mitigate the impacts on our communities of a lot of the cuts that the Republicans have implemented soon.
Just briefly to interject, despite the fact, obviously, of the shutdown, our office continues to be open, 5 days a week. We are essential staff, so our district office operations as well as our capital office operations have not changed. We are still doing constituent casework. However, we have noticed an increasing slowness in terms of responsiveness from congressional liaisons from various federal agencies responding to casework inquiries that we're sending, namely the Small Business Administration, Department of Labor. We've also seen this from the Internal Revenue Service, as you all know, as it relates to the impacts of the Palisades fire and the Wheaton fire.
Hello? I don't think we can hear that well.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure if you can hear a little bit better. We are continuing to do casework in our office, so if you need assistance, feel free to reach out to us. However, we have seen slower response from federal agencies, which have noted that the shutdown has been impacting casework. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Okay, were there any other updates?
No, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any from anyone on Zoom or in the COG office.
Any questions? Any on the call?
I do not see any of them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We're going to proceed to get an update from U.S. Senator Adam Bishop's office, represented by Patricia Horton. Welcome, Patricia.
Well, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I won't go through everything that Representative Waters or Rohan Nelkes went through. It's the same on the Senate side. We have been in session, but really we're in the same situation. They just keep putting up the same CR bill. They just won't. They won't work with us. I mean, what we're asking the Senate is basically to, we're sort of in a do no harm, posture at this moment. I will say, and I'm continually proud of the COGS and California, when, with the sort of uncertainty and chaos on the federal side that we are trying to avoid. You guys continue to just kind of muscle through the things that you know will help your city, the projects, and it is not easy. I think the senator has been very clear about we are still working on a housing bill. We are still working to try to figure out a solution for insurance. We are still trying to work through the agencies, and I think the argument you're hearing about healthcare is a much bigger issue than just I mean, the premium tax credits affect probably 50% of small businesses. They affect single owned, self-employed people. This is not just a small issue for a small number of people, and this will impact our businesses. It will impact it's more about impacting the certainty and how we spend our money, where we invest, and all of that has been a bit paralyzed because of this chaos. So um, the shutdown, and look, I think I wish more people understood what federal workers were, healthcare workers at the VA, our forestry service, our firefighters. I think there is hopefully a better understanding now of the amazing work that federal workers do every day. And they are not, in Washington, they're across the country, they're in every state. Um, we are seeing direct cuts to now FEMA when we need FEMA. We are seeing, and it's more in their admin stuff, so stuff's not getting processed. We are here working at the Senate offices, and we are doing exactly what the House members' offices are doing and staff. We are still responding to constituent requests, putting things through. We are not getting a lot of responses, and that will continue to get worse until we can, get Republican members to change their course, because the course that they're on is not sustainable, and it is potentially harmful on a lot of levels. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of messaging about, you know, money out to foreign countries where we should be supporting our own infrastructure here. We have a Supreme Court cases coming up that affect due process, that affect how we process things. So, all that. I will say that we are trying to um, find ways to push forward the grants and housing vouchers, and we'll continue on that course. But right now, I think we're just dealing with constituents hand to hand. I am very concerned, and I do want to hear, and I've asked other council of governments, other cities to let us know the direct impacts you're feeling on projects that are on hold, projects that have to be, paused because of the lapse in federal governance. Um, you know, I think that's kind of where we are with the shutdown. On the use of the National Guard, the senator has been very outspoken about how bad this is for our National Guard, apart from our communities and the chaos it's creating. California National Guard serves in so many levels to protect the state. They do mitigation work to protect our state. And when they are not on those jobs, that critical work does not get done. And it's bad for morale, but it's also bad for us as a state. We rely on them. We love our National Guard, but they are not being used in a legal way, we believe, and they are not being used in an effective way. And it's really causing a lot of other problems to not get solved. So apart from the fact that we believe this is illegal and not, just it creates a problem. That's what they're doing. They're creating an issue and then blaming people for being mad about an issue. So they're the ones instigating this. It's really harmful. I am, very proud of people who are out protesting peacefully, who are exercising their rights. And I want more and more people to feel that they can do that safely. So, we will continue to monitor just some of the abuse, the abuse of force that's going on with ICE. We are trying to track people who have been detained illegally and their experiences in detainment. There's a lot going on, and we are being blocked on a lot of levels. So we'll continue to fight through that. As to partisanship, I think we have really tried in the Senate to work logically. I will say, what we are seeing is that a lot of these senators are hearing from their constituents about the damage that the premium tax credit expiration will do. They are hearing from their constituents who are talking about rural health care. We have 10 hospitals in California now that are on the verge of at least partial closures. That is happening in a lot of states, and they are hearing from their constituents. So I hope they listen. That's the question. But, we have been open to discussions, but we will not vote to harm the American people, and specifically do great harm to Californians for some crazy political purpose. We're just not going to stand for that. So I think we're in a do not harm posture. I wish that they would come to the table. Right now, they are not doing that. We are in session, we are working, but we can keep voting on the same bad CR, and I don't know what their expectations are on the other side of the aisle, but we'll be here. We're working, and I just appreciate everything that you guys are doing. If there are direct impacts that the senator needs to know, please just call me, email me directly. I think the more information about impact, the better. So thank you.
Are there any questions? Okay, we're going to proceed to our next update from the office of Congressmember Nanette Barragan, represented by Sean Kearns. Take it away.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Sean Kearns from the District Office of Congresswoman Nanette Barragan. Appreciate you including us in this legislative briefing today. As my counterparts from the other House and Senate office have mentioned, the primary impacts that we're experiencing are largely on the constituent services level. Several federal agencies have informed us that they are either not operating or responding to congressional inquiries until after the government reopens. A few of those agencies include the IRS, the VA, and the Social Security Administration. In addition, there were thousands of federal employees laid off just last week, with HHS hit the hardest. What we can probably predict from this is that our local health centers, as well as hospitals, will be experiencing delays when looking to get reimbursement or looking to amend federally funded grant projects. A judge has since issued a TRO to pause those reduction in force notices to employees who are members of two specific unions. But of course, this issue will definitely continue onward in the courts. To go with that, several federal employees, towards 750,000, have been furloughed. And within that group, it's about 2/3 or even over 2/3 of staff over at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And, if this shutdown were to continue longer, this could really start to impact the administration of some of those programs that are so integral to our local governments. It might even impact CDBG, home, or emergency solution grant funding. Again, a lot of these are to be determined on the length of this shutdown. Other federal employees have been deemed essential and are not receiving payment until after the shutdown ends. And so this includes our Coast Guard personnel, including the folks at our base over on Terminal Island, our air traffic controllers, and folks from the U.S. Fire Service, who are integral to fighting wildfires throughout the state. Depending on how long that shutdown lasts, many of them will probably start to look elsewhere for employment opportunities, as the Congresswoman's already met with several of them, especially our air traffic controllers, who have directly told her that they just cannot sustain this kind of lapse in funding for too long. Additionally, a big impact coming to a lot of our families is that WIC funding is set to run out soon. The White House has given a vague announcement that they'll use some of the tariff revenue to continue the program, but those details are very limited at this point. And of course, this is the same administration that has proposed cuts to WIC funding anyway. Aside from the shutdown, but still related to the chaos coming out of the White House, earlier this month, the Trump admin announced a cancellation of over 300 clean energy projects. These are projects taking place across 16 states, mostly Democratic states, but a few also in Republican states. California is undoubtedly going to get hit really hardly by this decision because these canceled projects include grid modernization projects led by LADWP and another one led by SoCal Edison. It also includes solar energy developments, as a lot of our local governments are looking to achieve community solar projects. Also included within this cancellation is the Arches Hydrogen Hub. Essentially, these cancellations, aside from preventing great union job growth, it's also going to prevent us from implementing the infrastructure that would allow us to maintain or even lower electricity costs. And so really through this process, we are going to see our utility costs climb up even further. In response to this, the Congresswoman has introduced a bill called the Stop the Trump Electricity Price Hikes Act. And what that would do is reinstate the funding for all of those clean energy projects that have already been obligated to move forward. Our office continues to collaborate with Attorney General Bonta's office and members of the Litigation Response Task Force to push back on these attacks and get all the obligated grant funding restored. Luckily, not every grant program has been impacted. For example, over at the Port of LA, where they received a $412 million grant under the last admin to replace about a third of their diesel cargo handling equipment with zero emission tech. That project is still moving forward, and they have been able to process reimbursements up to date. The EPA Brownfield program, to my understanding, is still moving forward. And so I know the city of Carson had received additional funding this year for assessments. So luckily, not every program has been attacked, but lots of them have. I think the other big priority on our side, and aside from getting the shutdown ended, is getting Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva from Arizona sworn into office. Speaker Johnson has been refusing to do so, even though he could swear her in during the shutdown. There is no clause precluding him from doing so. But the real importance to this is that she will be the 218th member to sign the discharge petition to release the Epstein files. And with that, I'll open up to any questions folks may have.
Are there any questions? Okay, thank you so much. We are now going to proceed to the portion of our agenda updates from the state offices. So I would like to invite from State Senator Van Allen's office, Edward Feves.
Yeah, hello everyone. Apologies I'm not able to join in person. I was on my way and then got a call to be brought back into office. So unfortunately here over Zoom, but I'm gonna try to run through the update to the best of my ability. So the first important thing is the governor's deadline to sign bills was Monday. And so I'm just going to quickly run through the bills that we had signed by the governor. We had 9 cross out of the legislature, and 8 of those 9 were signed. That is our hydrant water theft bill, which allows local jurisdictions to increase penalties to disincentivize people from taking water from the hydrants. SB 413 are juvenile court records, which allows the county, when they're a party to litigation, actually have access to the records that they need to have, in which in prior iterations of the law was a little bit more complicated. SB 495, our Eliminate the List Act. This is in response to the wildfires. I've talked about this at length, but essentially it reduces the burden on the policyholder in order to get their contents coverage paid out to them without needing to itemize every single item that they lost due to a emergency like a fire or something along those lines. SB 630, our parks acquisition, this was a governor's priority bill. It essentially makes it a little bit easier for state parks to acquire land that is adjacent to a park for the purpose of expanding state parks. SB 663 is a property tax relief bill, also in response to the Palisades and Eaton fires, basically extending the misfortune and calamity deadline. The filing and application deadline for this. SB 760 allowing representatives to promote nonprofits and organizations that are doing helpful work in the case of emergency. Prior, it was really hard for us to help direct people to donate to organizations of this kind. So 760 makes that process a little bit easier. SB 766 is one of our standout bills. That's a consumer protections bill in the car buying process. So essentially it creates a first in the nation cooling off period where a buyer for a used car can say, hey, actually, I think this car isn't nearly as what was promised, and they can turn it back they can return it for a full reimbursement minus a reasonable restocking fee. I'm happy to go into more detail if asked. And then SB 770 is our HOA electric chargers bill, essentially making it easier for an HOA to install a publicly accessible EV charger without some really onerous requirements on the insurance front. I mentioned that one of our bills did not make it through the governor's desk, and that is a SB 682. That was our attempt to get rid of some forever chemicals, those PFAS from a lot of different cooking products. This is in conjunction with another bill that was vetoed, SB 490 or 454. So essentially what the governor is saying is it's not the industry's responsibility to get rid of these PFAS from materials that we know have an alternative. And also there's not a whole lot of support for local jurisdictions to remove those chemicals when they're already in our water streams and so on and so forth. Quite a disappointing legislative or end to the legislative session, but we continue to look for ways that we can help support our communities. I'll let Eric talk a little bit more about 986, but that's another one that is of top of mind for us that the governor unfortunately vetoed. Shifting over towards the questions that we were sent in advance, the first one surrounding the influx of housing legislation. Obviously, I can't predict with any certainty, but I think the trend data out of the last few years suggests that we're still going to continue to see housing legislation out of Sacramento. Frankly, I've been working with the Housing Committee staff and HCD's legislative staff to try to see what legislative pathways might exist to help ease some of the burden on our South Bay cities, because it's something that you all have spoken with me at length about. And I have encountered frankly, an unwillingness to engage to help get some common sense legislation through. That doesn't mean that we're giving up the fight. We are still trying to look for legislative fixes, or at least some pathways to help ease the process. But it has not been an easy process over the last year from our end, but we continue to work on that. The third question was about the outlook for the state's economy. So I did some digging on this, and I got into contact with some of our more budget-friendly personnel. Based off of outlooks, we're looking at a minor increase in the state's rainy day fund to try to kind of refill some of those coffers that have been tapped in recent years. But really, I think the state's fiscal outlook is pretty strong, and that's going to be buoyed by a lot of the international sporting events that are coming in. Obviously, we have the World Cup, the Super Bowl, the Olympics, NBA All-Star Game, if you're interested in any of those. So there is a lot of things that are coming into the region that will be economic drivers that we're going to see some recuperation of funds through. And then the last question was about what's the priority issues going into the next legislative session. We're still working on our legislative package, but of the conversations that we have had, we've already, in addition to the housing bill that we discussed, we are also looking at reforms to the insurance industry. Still kind of in keeping with the aftermath of the Palisades fires. We're looking at making sure that we can codify more environmental protections to insulate them from the federal, from the current administration and the federal government, as we've seen them roll back a lot of environmental protections, especially here in California. As well as a few bills that are continuations from last year that I think we're going to look at reintroducing or developing from that point, but no decisions have been made final at this point. We're still in that process of finalizing our legislative package. With that, I'm happy to take any questions. I know it's a bit of a shorter update this time around, but I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Olivia.
Thank you. Good morning. I had a question about SB 79. Was that not passed by was that not executed by the governor?
Yeah, so that bill did get signed by the governor a few days ago. For the South Bay, there are certain communities in the South Bay that it does impact directly. I would have to do some better digging to get the exact regions that are going to be most impacted. But yes, that bill was signed by the governor a few days ago.
And when you submit your information to the South Bay COG, could you let everyone know what impact is this going to have on cities and their ability to regulate the housing that's coming into their communities?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure I get a detailed response over to the COG.
Thank you.
Okay, Zane?
Question. So I see that SB 346 regarding short-term rentals was also signed. I don't know if you mentioned that, but my question is, what's prevailing wisdom on short-term rentals? Are they viewed favorably, unfavorably, as antithetical, or supportive of affordable housing in the state?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a conversation that kind of changes over time. I would say that generally speaking, the legislature seems to prefer the development of new housing units as opposed to filling vacant short-term rentals. That said, short-term rentals are still a active part of meeting the state's housing goals. They just aren't as prioritized to the same extent as the development of additional units.
Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, question, maybe you can relay it if you can't hear it, but how did Senator Allen vote on SB 79?
Yeah, so it's throughout the entire process of this bill, Senator Allen stayed off of the bill. At first, it was to allow the author to actually implement some of the amendments and address concerns of both committees and from Senator Allen. And then through the process, he still did not quite feel like the author made the number of adjustments that we were looking for. And so he stayed off of the bill. Functionally, it is the same thing as voting no, just not with or without the specific tag of having opposed the bill. But it is basically the same in function.
So no, he voted no.
So he officially abstained from the bill, but it is the same function as voting no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thing in the chat. It's Pinmantel put in the chat that he hasn't voted on any of the Wiener bills. That's correct.
Okay, Zane?
So this is for all our state legislators. In case you've been following what's happening with Redondo Beach or what's happened, we went through our 6th cycle housing element process with RENA or with HCD, and through 3 iterations, we worked 3 times on 3 different versions of our housing element with HCD, only to have HCD approve the final one. We had a certified housing element. We passed that. We even made an exception to our charter that required us to send major land use changes to the residents, and everything was hunky-dory. Of course, somebody sues us on it, and they challenge primarily the overlay zones used on commercial districts to allow for housing to be developed in commercial zones. In addition, they challenged a site that ACD deemed was a valid site for redevelopment. So the Court of Appeal found that we could not use overlay zones, residential overlay zones over commercial. And it questioned and basically said that one of the sites was invalid. So my point is, the state with this legislation is putting us in an impossible position. It's given us this authority, ACD, that really has no authority, that what it says cannot be relied upon. And let's say we go and we revise our housing element, which we don't believe is deficient, by the way. But let's say we go and revise our housing element and ACD recertifies, gives us another certification on a new housing element in light of this ruling. Somebody is going to sue us again to challenge some aspect of that. And we can't say, well, but ACD certified it, that means it's valid, because the courts are going to have to decide it. Because the legislature seems able to say, hey, you cannot judicially challenge some of these other laws it passes, but as it concerns the ACD, the arena process, it hasn't said, hey, you can't challenge what ACD says relative to or litigants, what ACD says is final. So we're having to endlessly defend ourselves in litigation forever forward at an extreme expense. And our insurance doesn't pay for this. This is money out of our general fund. So forget what Jackie said at the beginning about how you're saddling us with density that we can't afford to service with police, public works, and fire. You're also saddling us with endless litigation expense, and this needs to stop now.
Yeah, I certainly do hear the concerns and frustrations, and it is something that I've been monitoring very closely, especially this particular court case in Redondo. That's one of the things that we're working with our ledge team to see if there is a legislative pathway for us to close that opportunity, to try to reduce the amount of litigation that cities can face in this regard. That process is ongoing to try to figure out what is both something that we can get through the legislature and also something that meaningfully addresses this issue. But it is something that we are very well aware of, and we are looking at pathways to address.
You, Ray?
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate it. I just want to align myself with my colleague from Redondo Beach and share additional frustration. I mean, you've been around, you understand that we as municipalities are all dealing with these same challenges, same frustrations. And it doesn't appear from at least my lens and probably the lens of most of our colleagues here that we're getting support in Sacramento. I mean, we're getting all these unfunded housing mandates, most of which have no affordability component to it. And I've yet to see any real pushback, you know, anecdotally maybe, but these votes are passing overwhelmingly. And, you know, you just look at SB 79 that, you know, is going to impact some communities more than others. That was a bill that was a tremendous amount of local pushback. I didn't hear a whole lot in Sacramento. We know that Mayor Bass is planning to sue, and I'm sure other cities are going to join in that lawsuit. So it's the never-ending frustration when no housing is going to get built anytime soon. We know that. We're going to be tied up in endless lawsuits, endless frustration, endless pissed off residents as well as electeds. And then you look at, you know, thank God he signed the short-term rental legislation that gives us some ability, excuse me, to enforce our local ordinances. I don't think it went far enough, but it's a good start. And there's a clear indication that the proliferation of short-term rentals is impacting our housing inventory. And until, you know, we get that pushback, we know that the big money is from Silicon Valley and all these folks that are making $1 zillion. They don't own a single house, a single pillowcase, or a single towel, but everything they're doing to make themselves rich impacts us on the municipal level. So this is not a question, it's more my adding to the frustration that Councilmember Obaji articulated a few minutes ago, because we all share in this never-ending frustration, and we have to push back. We have to fight this. I mean, I'm a fan of Senator Allen, but I think there needs to be vocal opposition to these things that his constituents don't want. And it's clear, we all understand the need for housing, but we don't understand the one size fits all. And when there's legitimate pushback, we expect and we demand that from our Sacramento elected. So I don't mean to get on a tirade, but as you can tell, there's a lot of frustration in this room and in our communities.
Yeah, certainly. And for what it's worth, I do certainly apologize that we haven't been as vocal on this. I will certainly continue to raise this issue with Senator Allen, and he continues to share a lot of the frustrations that many of you do in the South Bay with the amount of housing legislation. But I will certainly share the feedback received today.
Thank you so much. And with that, I want to segue into, we have one of our assembly members on the call, Tina McKinner. So I want to give her an opportunity to give some updates and also possibly answer some of these questions as well.
And good morning, COG. As you can hear, I have a horrible cold, so I don't want to get on the camera because I look like I sound, and I'm on my way to the doctor. But I wanted to get on because I am the chair of the LA County Legislative Delegation, the 32 members across LA County. And LaQuisha has been, and thank you, I give a hand to my staff, LaQuisha, for always showing up and giving you guys information about my legislation. So I'm going to leave that part up to her. And I'm really going to just talk about housing and what's happening in Sacramento. I didn't vote for SB 79, I think it was. I did not vote for it. I made sure not to vote for it because thanks to my constituents, thanks to you guys for all the calls. And the calls were 3-1, for no, 1 for yes. So I will vote my district every time. And so my district was a 3-1 against it. What I found by being chair, I'm going into my 3rd year as chair, is that all the housing ideas are coming from the North. Northern California members are driving these housing bills that do not fit Southern California, does not fit LA County. And so I will make sure that personally, giving you guys my word, that I'm carrying only 5 or 6 bills next year so that I can really focus on housing. And I would love to, like with LaQuisha, have a roundtable with you guys so you guys can give me some of the problems you're having in your cities. I want to especially know more about the lawsuit so that we can remedy some of this. What I found is by the end of session, some of the members from up Northern California were trying to push some housing bills that I have to tell you, your LA County members, we stopped them. We stopped some of this stuff. One of them was I don't know how many cities in the South Bay have the tax bill like ULA, where you guys are getting money to build housing and to do housing in your cities. Well, we didn't want the Northern California people pushing stuff for our county. And so I will say that we will focus more on that. When it comes to ULA has raised a whole gang of money, millions of dollars, and they want to dismantle it. I don't know where you guys stand on that. So before we go to really doing, Lena Gonzalez and myself was going to do a bill to try and temper some of the concerns about ULA, but we pulled it back because we saw that we didn't have enough input from you, from the business community, from our advocates. And so for next year, we plan on looking at those tax bills and seeing if we can do anything to help them. We know that the Howard Jarvis Association is going to try and put a proposition on the budget to pull all that money back from cities, so that they can't address housing. And so I'd love to know your stance on all of this and what problems you're having with building housing. There's not a one size fit all, and I will give you my word that we will concentrate on Southern California housing and not let Northern California determine what we do with housing, because since I've been there, this was only my third year in the legislature. That's what I see is happening is that the big housing bills are coming from members from NorCal. We won't have that going forward. So that's what's gonna happen next year. Um, that was one of the questions you guys asked me about was housing. Let me see what the other question was. I'm sorry. Housing, the future of the future health of the economy. The economy, I mean, we're trying to bring the cost of living down. And trying to figure out how to do that means that I can't carry 18, 19 bills, means that I only need to carry 5 so that I can focus on how do we do that. I had one bill this year. It's a tiny bill. Everybody may not love it. It was AB 628, kitchen appliances and rental housing. But for our consumers, rent is really high for a 2-3 bedroom. You're looking at $4,300. If young people have to move into an apartment, that's like $8,600. I think I paid $6,800 down for my first house back in the day. And so when people are spending that much money and you're asking them to buy a stove and refrigerator on top of that, that's a lot. So little things like this, if we can bring the temperature down, if we can bring the economy, make the economy more affordable, that's something that I want to focus on next year. We know that the federal government is hitting California on all sides. And so at the state, we're trying to make sure that we can put safeguards in place to take care of our constituents. Last but not least, I talked about issues coming forward next year, and it is going to be housing, healthcare, healthcare, education. That's what's on my plate. So I'm going to stop there and take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay.
Can I ask you guys are any of your cities benefiting from any of these housing taxes? Are you guys like the ULA tax?
I don't.
Nobody?
Beach, no.
No cities in the South Bay are collecting taxes to build housing?
I'm only speaking for Manhattan Beach, but no.
Manhattan Beach, no.
Our Measure A county funds, are giving the COG about $5 to $6 million this year, $6 to $7 million, I guess.
Oh, that's good.
We can then help cities build housing. That's not a lot of money.
Okay. All right. So that doesn't even pertain to the South Bay. Just wanted to know, you guys, because this is serious. And we hate to go back and snatch money away from cities that are actually using this money to house people. Thank you.
Assembly member, this is Jeff Kiernan with Cal Cities. I have seen a list of the cities that do have these types of revenue streams that you're referring to, like the city of Los Angeles's ULA, and I can try to send that over to your office.
Please, thank you. Because I'd like to work with those cities and see where they are and see how they're using these funds and if it's really helping them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. With that, we're going to proceed to the office of State Senator Lola Smallwood Cuevas. Carlos Bonilla is here in person.
Would you like me to go to the podium?
Yeah, you might have there's a mic there. Thank you.
So I can project better.
Perfect.
Accent, so my voice kind of projects. It's just get on my microphone. Hello, my name is Carlos Padilla. I'm the senior field rep for Senator Smallwood Cuevas. Our district goes from downtown all the way to Culver City, kind of like the 10 freeway down south, south of Manchester, etc. So it's like a giant rectangle. I'd like to give you a brief legislative update on the senator's legislation. I'll just read a few lines and facts of the bill. SB 75, it was vetoed by the governor, and this would establish pre-apprentice pathway programs, and it would require the Department of Corrections, along with the Department of Industrial Relations, to establish a pilot program and to get some of our folks back into employment. The governor vetoed that one. It was sponsored by the author. Another bill, unfortunately, was vetoed, SB 275. It was brought to us by the California Workforce Association, and it provided an eligible training provider list. This bill would have prohibited approved training providers from being removed from the list. And it would have a certification every 2 years. And unfortunately, the governor vetoed that. The reason the senator is heavy with legislation, employment relations legislation, is that she is chair of the Senate Labor Committee. SB 303, which was signed, it was brought to us by the County Board of Supervisors. And it's kind of technical, but the bill provides that an employee's assessment, testing, or acknowledgement of their own personal bias, which was made in good faith. When you hear this message, that it not be used against them. That was signed by the governor. Another labor bill, which was signed by the governor, SB 464. The bill would provide existing data requirements from private employers to provide a better picture of the workforce that we have going on moving forward. SB 578 was signed by the governor, and this was brought to us by the California Coalition for Worker Power. And it establishes through the Department of Industrial Relations to promote outreach for worker outreach and create educational materials so that employees would be aware of workplace compliance issues and things of that sort. Again, I'm just providing 1 or 2 sentences on the bill because they can get pretty technical. A bill that was vetoed by the governor, SB 756. This would have asked the production companies in the film industry that receive tax credits to provide a better picture of their employee group, of all their demographics, et cetera. And the governor decided to veto the bill. That was just an overview of some of the members' bills. Again, she's chair of the Senate Labor Committee, so her focus is more on labor issues. And though she is concerned about housing, like Senator Allen, she too abstained from SB 79. She had some concerns about it. There are maps of where this would take effect, and it's basically the rail line that goes from Santa Monica, Culver City, cuts right through the middle of the senator's district and goes all the way downtown. Then there's the line, basically the freeway, the 110. There's going to be a lot going on there. And then just above our district, there's going to be some heavy areas impacted by that. And the senator had some concerns about the bill, that it didn't provide affordability. What about displacement of renters? Let's say a developer comes in and buys up 3 or 4 properties and then kicks everybody out and puts up a 10-story building. There's no parking allowed, et cetera. So she did have some concerns. The senator is focusing on some housing issues. there's an old EDD building in our district, and she's trying to, with community input, convert that into some housing. And so she's looking at various models that would be beneficial to our district. And that would be affordability and of course, accessible to rail lines. This old EDD building's around by Crenshaw, so there's a line that goes through there. And so we're soliciting input from local residents to see how they would like to see this property developed. As far as the state's economy, the center is very concerned about AI and what that will have on our workforce. Already, I'm sure you've heard that a lot of the entry-level positions, whether it be in law or medical fields, et cetera, is being taken over by AI. And my daughter's graduating from USC in engineering, and I'm very concerned about that because she's looking. And but the impact of AI right now is on a lot of entry-level positions. And with our recent graduates coming up, even high school, AI is a great concern to the senator. And so she's been looking at that issue for quite a while. Another one, you have here the Olympics. The senator, along with Senator Allen, who chairs the special committee on the Olympics and other mega events, the senator is very concerned about that because it's in the heart of her district. Our office is right next to the Coliseum. And so there's going to be a lot of impact on our district. And the mention about short-term rentals, we're very concerned about that it may displace some renters. And she's very concerned that once this element gets in, that it's hard to, that it might not go away. And so she's concerned about that. I staff her on that special committee, and we've had conversations with Mr. Hoover. He's the CEO of the Olympics, and we have scheduled some more meetings with him regarding employment, regarding procurement, and other issues that are important to our businesses and our residents that would like to get employed, even for the short term. But because everyone forgets about the Paralympics, because that's happening right after. In the area of youth sports, the LA 84, they left some money, and there's an organization called LA 84 Foundation, and they have money. What they do is they provide sports activities for children in Los Angeles. And so they're looking at doing something similar, and Mr. Hoover has committed to doing that. He's committed to local vendors. I believe he said 25% will go directly surrounding like the Coliseum, that area. And then the other 75%, he said he will try to direct towards LA County. So there are opportunities, though they will be using third parties to access procurement, employment, and other activities. At this point, is there any questions?
Are there any questions? No?
I believe you have my contact information, so if there's any questions you may think about as you're driving back to your offices, please feel free to reach out to me. Our phones are down, so you can't call me. Sacramento assures me they're working on it right now. So it's been about a couple of months. So anyway, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna proceed to the office of Assemblymember Almer Suchi, represented by Eric Pons-Furlos.
Good morning, everyone. And just to mention, just to follow up with what Carlos said, we are also having some phone issues. Ours is getting repaired tomorrow, though. But yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Eric Bonce. I am with the Office of Assemblymember Almer Suchi, and I just wanted to provide some updates on some signed legislation. So Governor Newsom signed AB 49, the California Safe Haven Schools Act, which bars immigration enforcement officers from entering a school or childcare facilities without meeting strict criteria like valid ID, judicial warrant, and approval from school district leadership. It basically limits their access to areas where children are not present. AB 1454, this was a bill co-authored by the Assembly member along with Speaker Rivas and Senator Rubio. This bill would require the State Board of Education to adopt English language arts, English language development instructional materials that align with evidence-based reading practices. Basically, we are trying to increase our literacy rates. AB 875, Muratsuchi, this one, the e-motorcycle impoundment, lets police impound electric-powered vehicles that exceed legal speed limits or are unregistered or operated by unlicensed users. It also removes Class 3 e-bikes if ridden by someone under 16, with rules for releasing the vehicle after 48 hours. The next one is AB 1123, also signed by the governor, which would require the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing to include a member representing early childhood education. This bill was introduced in order for the early childhood education faculty to have some representation within the California Commission of Teacher Credentialing. And last but not least, AB 642, which would allow employees affected by state declared emergencies like the wildfire to receive donated catastrophic leave from coworkers. And it would require schools to report data about students displaced, such as emergencies, to California Student Data System. And then the last bill, unfortunately, Governor Newsom vetoed AB 986, and the following is a member's response to that veto. The Assembly member is disappointed in the governor's veto of AB 986 for the families of Palos Verdes still grappling with the aftermath of devastating landslides. Clarity matters. While the Emergency Services Act may provide broad authority, local officials have made clear that explicitly including landslides would provide clarity and strengthen requests for federal and state aid. The governor's veto message suggests this language was unnecessary, but his decision leaves landslide victims uncertain about why they continue to be denied financial assistance if landslides are indeed covered under existing law. The Assembly member will continue to fight for all landslide victims and to work with the Palos Verdes cities to get the resources we need to protect our communities. And I also wanted to touch on the question regarding housing. The Assembly member, housing affordability is one of the biggest challenges in California, and the Assembly member recognizes how deeply it impacts families and businesses in the South Bay. At the same time, the Assembly member does believe that housing policies must respect the unique character of our local communities. That is why the Assembly member has consistently fought to preserve local control over housing decisions so that our cities, not Sacramento, can determine how best to plan for growth. A one-size-fits-all approach does not work for the South Bay, where we need to balance housing needs with infrastructure, school, traffic, and quality of life. In line with this, the Assembly member voted no on SB 79, which would have limited control over housing policies. Ultimately, the Assembly member prioritizes a balanced and community-driven affordable housing options while also protecting the South Bay's small town character.
He also vows to work with the beach cities and other cities to introduce legislation that would benefit cities who have met their RENA numbers. That is all the updates that I have. Oh, one last one. We did recently have our South Bay town hall this past Saturday at El Camino College, where we actually discussed housing, public safety, and homelessness as well as education. So if anyone have any questions, I'll really take this out.
Are there any questions? Okay,
Really quick. Hi, Eric. Jake Stotz with the Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts. Do you know at this time if your office is thinking of doing anything else about the landslide declaration bill, either rerunning it or trying it in a new form?
As of now, I am not aware, but I can connect you with our staffer who is leading that issue area. Yeah, as of now, I'm not aware.
Okay, I think I have your office's contact information, so I could always reach out. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
okay. Next, we're going to go to the office of Assemblymember Mike Gibson, represented by Maya Douglas. Actually, sorry, we are going to have Dean Arnold and Valerie Rodriguez.
I think Valerie, she stepped out and Dion's not able to give the update.
Okay. Okay. So we'll move along then to the office of State Senator Laura Richardson, Daisha Austin.
Hi, good morning. This is Richard Garcia. I'm actually filling in for Daisha, who was assigned to a different task for this morning. If it's okay with everybody, I kind of want to work a little backwards and answer the questions first and then go into the legislative update. So on the question of housing, Senator Richardson did joint author SB 625, which is a bill that is in response to the Pacific Palisades and the Eaton Canyon fires, wherein it allows for a streamlining of rebuilding for residential housing at the aftermath of a disaster. And housing in general, the senator is always looking for ways and is interested in talking to stakeholders on any ideas for affordable housing, whether it's construction of new projects or rehabs. On the issue of the economy, the senator having representing the port area and LAX is always interested in looking at ways to enhance the blue economy and the green economy. As was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of transition at the ports to the green economy with charging stations and more electric vehicles coming in and out of the port. There was on the more local level, the senator did send out a small business survey earlier this year to ask about how tariffs would impact business operations and what small businesses encounter during their operations or as startups that are hurdles for them to either access funding or to launch their businesses or grow their businesses. She took that data, and her ledge team is going to be working on some packages for this coming year, but obviously we'll continue to look for input on any ways to help small businesses grow local economies. So you could probably expect another survey coming soon, as the ledge team is going to be meeting in November. With regards to the senator's legislative package, she had 10 bills signed by the governor. On the local level, SB 748, which deals with RV encampments, allows cities and counties to access funding to either rehab sites for RVs or identify sites to create RV parking and storage. It also provides for, the funding also provides for services and programs for those living in RVs to find temporary or permanent housing. So that is, it takes a lot of the RVs off the streets and puts control into the local entities, whether they're cities or counties. SB 7777 deals with abandoned cemeteries. This now provides local jurisdictions to identify who's responsible for upkeep and monitors the maintenance of those cemeteries. Also on the local level, the senator put into place SB 631, which has to do with charter schools. This allows charter schools who are startups to access a greater amount of funding for startups or for growth. This was in conjunction with the Office of the State Treasurer's Office, and that was signed on Monday. And then we have access to greater access to Medi-Cal for those. It was mentioned, I believe, by one of my colleagues that there are several hospitals in jeopardy of partial closure. Some of that has to do with Medi-Cal reimbursements, and so this bill allows for greater access for individuals to the Medi-Cal services. And that is it. But what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm sending over the entire legislative package to the COG so that you can see each bill and its impact on both local and state efforts.
Okay. Are there any questions? Olivia?
Good morning. I just have a brief question. How did the senator vote on SB 79?
Ultimately, she voted no.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for the updates. With that, we're going to now proceed to the section for updates from the League of California Cities. I'm going to hand it over to Jeff Kiernan.
Good morning again, everyone. Jeff Kiernan with the League of California Cities. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I've got several meetings I'm attending at the same time this morning. I just wanted to thank all of you for participating in this meeting today. It's really important to see all of the decisions that got made with sign and veto and legislation throughout the year. Quite frankly, it's somewhat of a disappointing legislative year from my perspective with SB 79 on the transit-oriented development housing, SB 707, which places additional problems and requirements on cities for Brown Act regarding translation and virtual participation. And then, as I mentioned in the chat a bit earlier, AB 650, which would have given cities a clearer picture of what they're dealing with from HCD in that housing element process, and given them an additional 6 months in order to get that housing element completed. The biggest bright spot I'm drawing on right now is SB 346, the short-term rental bill that allows cities to audit those short-term rental websites and get that information to better enforce their short-term rental ordinances, as well as make sure that the TOT is getting to the correct city. So those are some of the biggest things that I've been looking at. keep an eye out from information from me. You will be seeing, we've got a webinar on December the 1st that I just found out about, so I'll be publicizing that to the membership about the new laws which will be taking effect in 2026. So our lobbyists on December 1st will be going through that. So look for that information from me. I also do want to acknowledge our annual conference last week, and we did announce 3 legislators of the year from our statewide organization, including our local Senator Ben Allen. So I just want to congratulate him on that well-deserved honor. I'm happy to take any questions. I know there's been a lot of discussion today. I haven't been able to hear all of it, but I'm happy to take questions if you have any specific ones for me as well.
Any questions for Jeff? Looks like you're off the hook.
All right, thank you all.
Okay, and now we get into public comment. Are there any public comments today? Okay, seeing none. It looks like we've exhausted the meeting. I want to thank everybody for showing up. Please feel free to stay for some, I think there's a freshly brewed coffee, or is that something? Okay, so thank you all for joining us, and we will see you at the next legislative briefing. Thank you.